Thank you for the introduction. It's a great pleasure being here with you today. We have a chance to discuss a little bit more about why organizations must empower youth in the road to a greener economy and economic recovery. And we have the pleasure to have this conversation today with two wonderful speakers, two wonderful people that are working in organizations in the region that are empowering youth and doing amazing things when it comes to economic recovery. Maybe we start from just a quick introduction from both of you, on your background and what you're currently up to. Michèle, if you want to start.
Good morning. Thank you for the introduction, Roberto. So actually, I'm Michèle Dagher, the Creating Shared Value at Nestlé, Middle East and North Africa. So I'm responsible for aligning on all the commitments that Nestlé has towards serving the purpose and the values through commitments to the individuals and their family, to the community, and to the planet. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Michèle. Great having you here today. And Sabrin?
Hi, Roberto. My name is Sabrin Rahman. I head sustainability for Europe, Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey for HSBC. And essentially what that means is that we strategize and champion sustainability integration both within our organization and ensure that we have systematic outreach to our community, to our clients, and to our customers on this topic.
Awesome. This is great. So both of you mentioned a couple of things that are really, really important today, even more than ever, right? So you mentioned sustainability, which I guess even before the pandemic was clear, a number of issues or challenges, big challenges that the world has, but the pandemic has just accelerated or made those more evident. And you also mentioned purpose. So how brands connect to purpose, and this relates me to think about youth. So why organizations should invest in youth in this road to a greener economy, to a more sustainable economy? What's your point of view on that? Whoever wants to take it first, maybe we started from Michèle.
Okay, so on one hand, it's a fact that youth are the future leaders and they should be part of shaping the future of the society and drive the green agenda. They should also be part of the sustainability strategy, whether of Nestlé or other companies. On the other hand, it's also a fact that youth are one of the most vulnerable groups affected by the multi-crises we're witnessing today. In fact, in Middle East and in the MENA region, actually, Middle East and North Africa, we are at the highest level of unemployment for youth. And those rates are being exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. And today, according to the Arab Youth Survey, half of the young people are considering leaving the country. So now more than ever, we are responsible of equipping the next generations for employment to become successful entrepreneur, agripreneur, and game changers. This will help build thriving and resilient communities, which is in line with the UN Sustainable Goals. For the business as well, by the way, it is important to invest in youth and to empower youth because young people, they drive internal change in a company, keeping it dynamic and competitive. So this is why it's important to have youth driving the green economy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. And Sabrin, on your perspective, from a HSBC perspective as well, I guess in the region we see initiatives around financial inclusion, right? So there is a number of fintechs on the startup side of things that are developing a solution for financial inclusion. And there is also a challenge, if you want, or an issue about financial literacy in some of the countries in the broader region that we manage. What's your perspective? Why an organization like HSBC should invest in youth?
So I think what you've said, Roberto, really sums it up. There are certain needs that the younger population has that are quite specific. So we have one of the youngest populations in the world in this region, in the Middle East. Over 60% of our population is under the age of 35. And what does that mean? That means that we need to have a systematic representation of their needs and their requirements. And one of those needs are around lifelong learning, around being able to pivot, their ability to learn new skill sets, new capabilities, to be ready for the world of work, which will look fundamentally different from what it does today. I think it's fair to say COVID has completely changed the way we learn, the way we work, the way we connect. And it's still very unsure what future we are preparing for our generation and the ones below. I think every organization has a remit and a responsibility to understand what that means and where they can really influence change. So for HSBC, we have taken a huge leap in understanding what the future skills are needed for the future. So we invest heavily on entrepreneurial programs to help develop the capabilities and skill sets of the next generation of entrepreneurs, but also how to manage your money, how effectively, because we know that affluence also causes issues around financial capability and literacy. So there's a wide variety of programs and touch points that we at HSBC lead for youth engagement.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is amazing. Also, I'm following what you're doing as a company, and in the region you're powering one of, if not the first, social impact accelerator with C3. So this is amazing what you're doing. And touching on that, then my next question would be then to learn more about so then how organizations are doing it, because we said so far we said, yeah, it's very important to engage with youth, right? So when it comes to sustainability, green economy, and economic recovery. But how organizations are doing it? Do you have any story, either from your organizations or from other organizations you have been maybe partnering with or working with to share? Maybe we start again, Michèle, we keep this flow.
So at Nestlé in general, we are very committed to youth employment and employability. Since 2013, the Nestlé Needs Youth initiative sets commitments and very ambitious targets aiming at contributing to the preparation, training, and hiring of the next generations. In parallel, we also have a set of commitments on sustainability, including climate change, packaging, water, etc. And we really believe that those two sets of commitments, they intersect at several levels, and they create synergy that we believe serve the greener and the more inclusive recovery. We also, for instance, now, every couple of years, we have what we call the Creating Shared Value Prize. So it's one example other than the Nestlé Need Youth that aims at rewarding and supporting innovative solutions to address global challenges. And we connect the most promising innovations with Nestlé for the benefits of the prize winners, the Nestlé and the broader society. Actually, I would like to take the opportunity to highlight this year's prize. It was aiming to identify system-changing projects supporting Nestlé's vision that none of our packaging ends up in landfill. And the general theme of that Creating Shared Value Prize was how to create a waste-free future. So this is one way of attracting, supporting, and empowering youth.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing and for being that involved in engaging with youth. Sabrin, from your perspective, any story to share how organizations are currently doing it?
Sure. So I'll take it from a HSBC perspective and from an internal and external lens. So internally, there are mechanisms to ensure that we take the viewpoints and representation of our next generation of colleagues through the establishment of platforms such as a shadow exco, so a next gen exco, and who are able to input into the strategy and direction of our organization. We also have a lot of opportunities for these colleagues to do reverse mentoring to our senior management, which I think really allows us to have that skills transfer internally on emerging topics, whether it be AI, even sustainability. And it really allows, that concept of lifelong learning for our senior managers. What we've also tried to do through initiatives such as supporting the C3 Social Impact Accelerator is to then bring our next generation of clients on board to help scale, invest in, and support solutions for a green recovery and to help tackle some of the biggest issues. So what we do is, for example, we actually open up the finals of the C3 accelerator to all of our private banking clients, the next generation of our private banking clients, and they have the ability to then invest, support, and mentor some of these startups to really take them to the next level. So we really see our role as an aggregator and a convener of like-minded people from all generations, but especially the next generation.
Love that, because it touched a point on bridging the gaps in an ecosystem, right? Because what we need to do is we cannot do all of this just as one single entity or ourselves, is leveraging on each other and bridging the gaps and connecting the dots across different players that are working on that. So along this side, then my next question then is, and this is the tricky question, is what is that we don't know? And of course, if we would know, it would be an easy answer. But what is it we don't know? Where do you see, from your perspective, looking at this ecosystem beyond just your organization, where do you see the gaps that needs to be addressed in order to have more, the youth actively involved and taking part of this conversation? In my imagination, I'm even thinking why there is no youth represented in corporate boards. Where on one side it's evident they don't have enough experience but they're not even represented. So sometimes you see companies that now say, "Oh, we're fear to be disrupted and not have, we're not connected to purpose. We're not getting our customers, but we are not even having them in a decision-making process." What's your point of view on that? Where do you see the gaps, Michèle?
Okay, so in my perspective, it's pretty much what you said. I can see two gaps. The first gap that's different, that's actually there's a gap in the traditional education system when it comes to preparing the young people for the future professional world. Another gap, which you mentioned, is actually a gap in collaboration and in coordinated engagement. So despite the efforts that Nestlé or other companies are putting into empowering youth, the lack of collaboration between the different actors remains an obstacle. So we believe that only together with other companies, other stakeholders, we can actually create concrete plans to drive measurable change and greater impact. So even though the government needs to create this right environment for the young people, the corporation, being on the front line, are in a unique position to actually contribute. So what we're doing at Nestlé is actually that we are working to make a positive difference beyond our company, as you suggested, beyond the company, and we are partnering with governments, foundations, youth organizations, the private sector, through what we call the Alliance for Youth movement. So Nestlé founded the Alliance for Youth, which is a business-driven movement and a model of business cooperation, in 2014 to help prepare the young people to enter the professional world. Today, we are more than, in Alliance for Youth, we are more than 300 companies, and we recently committed to offer 300,000 new work opportunities to young people across the MENA region from 2021 to 2025. Moreover, this year specifically, the Alliance for Youth wants to equip the young generation with the right digital skills and also green skills to shape the society of tomorrow. And in response, Roberto, to what you suggested, not having youth in boards or like showing, we are actually in Nestlé, in MENA, Europe and Middle East, we have specific movement, we call them tribes, that are actually youth ambassadors, which will be responsible of sharing and championing the sustainability issues within a society, internally and externally.
This is amazing.
So we're working on that. Yes.
That's amazing. No, that's great to hear, and it's happening, right? So it's great to hear. You mentioned education, addressing education, preparing the skills for the future. You mentioned this collaboration. You mentioned how by having youth championing it and having ambassadors, for example. But also you mentioned indirectly talking the language of youth as well, right? Tribes and the way youth are looking at things is very important. Cool. Sabrin, what's your point of view? Where do you see the gaps from your perspective?
Living and working in the UAE over the last decade, I've seen a huge evolution in how young people and the next generation are included in I guess, at all levels of decision making. The appointment of the Minister for AI, Minister for Food Security, some of the youngest ministers in the world at very critical junctures when it comes to decision making. I think on the corporate side, absolutely more diversity is needed. And we're not talking about gender diversity, we're talking about age diversity. And I think that is something that will really take planning at a very strategic level, much more forward than it has been. But to be completely honest, I think a huge gap exists within corporations, understanding how the best of young people can be brought out. They need different incentives, they need different drivers. It's not about having a token program or a token platform. It's about being able to support them at every step of the way. And I think the pandemic and having more flexible working has brought that to the forefront, that there is a different way of operating, and this is what the next generation wants. I think the focus on really enhancing capabilities rather than skill sets is a transformation that's happening in the education sector. It needs to be reinforced at a tertiary level, and then it needs to be embedded at a sort of corporate level for that to flourish. So there are some key gaps. I think what Michèle alluded to in terms of collaboration is key, but then also reinforcement, remuneration, incentivization are things that really need to trickle through all sectors, and we need to collaborate on that.
That's amazing. And that links to me also to another aspect, which is how we are measuring success. And how we're measuring success comes from the metrics we use, right? So it's not just about the revenues and how the business is going. It's more a longer term approach. We should have some social impact metrics as well that would count in terms of, hey, we are successful as an organization, as a brand, as contributing to society. As we are getting towards the end of our very insightful and great conversation, I have one final simple question for each of you is, what is your wish for the months to come? But very practically, what do you wish to happen in the next 3 to 6 months in order to fill some of these gaps? What do you think needs to happen as well? Michèle.
Okay, so in general, maybe not for the 3 months to come, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, we need more coordinated engagement from different stakeholders. We need to act all together as one to support the youth and to hire more, train more, be all together. Also, we need to drive more dialogue around sustainability. It could be through the creation of common platforms of communication between youth interested in sustainability and the industry. So always trying to link those two together beyond the school or university setting. And also, we can provide more and more support and incentive and such as the model of Nestlé creating shared value prize. So we can actually be rewarding, not only rewarding the youth and their innovations, but also supporting them, connecting them to industries and mentoring them. And finally, maybe I would think of encouraging more inclusion and integration of sustainability debates, modules, discussions in schools and in universities to start, to really start encouraging youth and teaching youth and enlightening youth on those matters that are the issues of tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you, Michèle. Sabrin, your wish for maybe not the next 3-6 months, but your wish on what needs to be happen to advance this conversation.
Look, my wish is that we have more opportunities for young people to develop life skills. So here we've been supporting a variety and running a variety of programs. So for example, one is called Tatawer, which has been running across the Middle East for the last 4 to 5 years. And some of the results that we're seeing coming out of it are so critical in terms of planning for the future. So we're seeing that the whole ecosystem needs to be impacted. So teachers, students, parents, employers, in terms of preparing children and youth for the future. We're seeing that people want to have greater agency to impact their communities and really to create these opportunities. So my wish is that we are able to understand that there are a lot more drivers that we need to focus on, that go beyond academics, that go beyond your traditional KPIs that measure success. I think we need to take mental health issues very, very seriously for the next generation, because all of that is academic success and commercial success is great, but not at the price of, unfortunately, the mental health of youth. So I think all of us have a huge role to play, and we have to create opportunities for young people to flourish, because we can see that internships, graduate programs, unfortunately have been very severely affected by the pandemic. And it's not just 1 year, this could span over the next few years. So how do we now replace these opportunities with more levels of learning?
That's amazing. I love that you both touch on the importance of building a connected ecosystem. So going beyond, your own organization and thinking about, the gaps that needs to be filled across the broader ecosystem and different stakeholders is more or less connected to what Satya says as, the culture Satya is setting, and Microsoft says, you don't join this company to be cool, but to make others cool, right? So, and that's the same spirit that I feel here from both of you. And it's important, as you said, to tackle education and to reimagining probably the future with youth, in order to build a better world and to make a real change. So with that, I really thank you, both of you, Michèle, Sabrin, for your inputs, your insights, your experience, your feedbacks. Has been an amazing conversation. Could have been longer than the time that we have for today. So looking forward to being in touch. Looking forward, connecting afterwards on how we can work all together to impact youth. And again, thank you so much for your insights.